Hello and welcome to Road to Statehouse. I am Malik Jones, and in our edition today we have the Honorable Bakari Bonja Dabo. He is no Statehouse, he is no guest, he's no stranger rather in Gambian politics. And today we will be talking about his coming into politics way back in the PPP era, his service to the nation in the Second Republic, and right now he is the leader for the Gambia for All party. Honorable, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. My pleasure to be with you on your very uh, well-known uh, television service and program.
Right. We will begin by looking at Gambian politics and do a flashback. You have served in the First Republic in very high capacity. You were finance minister. You were also vice president at one time. Can you tell us your involvement, a recall of your involvement in politics in the First Republic?
Yeah, it's true that I did, as part of my public service career, I did uh, take on a number of functions which you can categorize as political leadership functions. Mm, overtly political started in 1981 when I was nominated to the membership of parliament. Um, as the law stood at the time, and I believe it's still the case, the president had limited uh, powers to nominate few members to people to membership of parliament. And in 1981, I was nominated by the president to become a member of parliament. Prior to 1981, I was in public service, but mainly in the civil service end of things. With my nomination to parliament in 1981, it was in September, I believe. That nomination came with my appointment as also a minister in the government, because the constitutional settlement which was in place then uh, did not frown on ministers also being members of parliament. On the contrary, you had to be a member of parliament to qualify to become a minister. So I was appointed minister at the same time that I was nominated member in the parliament, and held a position in the government as minister. The portfolio I was assigned to was at the time called information and tourism, the two sectors. Yes, and later on, of course, I held other government ministerial positions, as you yourself said, including position of vice president, which in the arrangement then made you uh, de facto deputy to the president. Although de jure you are actually only an assistant, but de facto you are also the deputy because you had to deputize for the president on many occasions. Yes, I did all that, and I did I did handle several ministerial portfolios, sometimes concurrently with my role as vice president, other times when I wasn't vice president. That was the extent of my involvement until 1994. As you know, 1994, we had a very serious development with the overthrow of that government and the installation of a military rule through what was called a junta, military junta. Um, well, with that act of overthrowing, of course, I was also overthrown with the team. I was overthrown. I was taken out. But then, within a fairly short time, I had overtures made to me by the junta to say they had formed a government. Apart from the junta, they also had a government of ministers, and they made appeal to me to say, can you continue in the role which you performed in the previous government, which was the Minister for the Economy,
What did they see in you?
the national economy.
What did they see in you
Only,
to
only
have?
they could say, only they could say. They
Oh,
didn't tell me.
mm,
They didn't tell me, and I don't know whether I would have believed
mm,
if they had said it, but
mm.
what I know is that they did make frantic efforts first to contact me, because initially I don't think they even knew where I was physically. I had been to Senegal, but they made frantic efforts, contacted me, appealed on the radio, and then finally located me and made efforts to come. Now, I cannot say what they saw in me, but I can say what I saw in the appeal made to me, which made me to come. Uh, there was no appeal about a military government, particularly replacing a constitutional government with it. There was no appeal in that. But I was more impressed by the desperate state in which the country was placed. The first 2 weeks or so, since when the military intervened, I was very much part of a lot of efforts, very little known to the public today, but very energetic efforts were made to undo the coup. I was very much, and that was what I believed in. It was only after all those efforts failed, and in that kind of situation, things moved very fast, that when the appeal was made to me, I took it on as a second best option. So I took it because I had hoped that coming within, I could from within convince, not so much to undo the coup, it was perhaps too late to undo it, but at least to limit the period of
Of
its
the
stay,
transition.
of
Yeah.
its stay.
Okay.
Because I was very conscious, very aware that military experience of military rule would be very ruinous to Gambia. I had lived and gone to school in West Africa, in countries like Nigeria and Ghana, and in both cases I was around when military took over, and I already knew very well how detrimental military rule by its very nature was to small, fragile countries like ours. So I knew that it was the wrong way to go, but since I couldn't stop it from happening, and I was given this opportunity of, say, coming and work, I saw in it, and that was the main appeal for it in it, that in it I will try my chance to see whether I can reduce their period of stay and hasten the return to normal constitutional order. That was the reason why I came around and stayed with them. Of course, it didn't work that way, and within a very short time, 70 days exactly,
In office.
70 days exactly, I had seen enough to convince me that
This wasn't your place.
that contrary to assurances they had given me when they were asking me to come, that they had no intention to honor those assurances, and I was also not prepared to go along what I then saw already as an anti-national undertaking, but I was also not prepared for them to benefit from what little prestige they thought I had with in certain constituencies like our development partners who I had fairly good standing with. So I wasn't prepared that they should use that with the intention of perpetuating themselves in office, and I left them. That was really...
That was the main reason why you left.
That was the main reason, yes.
Then you left the shores of the country,
Yes,
and it's been a very long time.
yes.
You were in the outside looking at the inside. What did you see?
Well, first, why I left. When I resigned from office, I was not quite settled on what I would do with myself initially. But I wanted to make myself available for what the military government had announced as an impending probe, a probe into the way each of us individually who had been in the government had conducted ourselves in public affairs. So I was quite prepared. In fact, during the letter that I wanted to be the first person.
In other words, they instituted the commissions.
They were working on instituting. It was not instituted, but that was the only thing that I was clear in my mind, that I wanted to get that out of the way. Then I will decide what to do with myself. And I stayed around for about a month or two, hoping that the commissions would be put in place and that I would go through and then clear, because I wanted to have my name cleared. But anyway, within the 2 months that I was there, not only there wasn't much progress in putting up the commissions, but the military junta started showing extreme bad faith, extreme hostility to me and to the others. I came in for harassment, and by then I was quite convinced that my security couldn't be guaranteed, because the people in authority themselves were the threat to me. Instead of providing protection, they were a threat to me. And also by then I had started to doubt whether the probe that they had announced would be a serious one. But anyway, I decided that anyway, my security not being guaranteed, in fact being threatened with several harassment, invasion of my privacy, detention in and out, I decided that I wanted to leave. I didn't believe that I should, fold my hands and allow them to, mistreat me.
Can we call that self-exile?
Oh yes, I took the decision to go away, to place myself out of their control, their jurisdiction, out of harm's way. So I left the country and went, and initially I didn't even work out what I will do, but I naturally, regions of geography, if you leave this country, most like the first port of call will be Senegal. So I first went to Senegal, had time to reflect a little bit, and among the options open to me, I chose to go to UK. I had options, but when I considered them, UK was the one I chose to go for reasons I knew. So I went to UK, still hoping that the military junta would not last very long. So I went to UK and even initially went ahead and filled the forms and said, investigate my affairs in your commission. There was pressure, I know, I had been part of it, for them to shorten their stay. So there was still hope that they made us stay too long, the country will get a chance to go back. But when it appeared by the following year that not only they didn't want to go, but they want to perpetuate themselves in a fraudulent way by calling an election in which was not fair, and they started. Then I joined the active opposition to that, within what I could do under the law, to agitate for return to constitutional rule, return to rule of law, end to the abusive rule that was inflicted on the people. Unfortunately, we were all around. That effort and similar efforts by other people, all failed to move, because those efforts were in the nature of getting the players in the international community to reason with Jammeh. Now Jammeh was the person. Reason was the wrong approach. You never moved him. They reasoned to him. They tell him. They show him. That was not his concern. So he stayed in power until 2016. Fortunately, the opposition forces, as you know, came out with a plan which seemed to have worked, and that is perhaps how I would trace my own journey through public affairs.
You were out in the UK, but then, like I said earlier on, you had your eyes set in the country. What were you seeing? What kind of 22 years did you see?
Oh, I followed very closely. What was going on. Obviously, I had to attend to my primary needs as a head of family, but also as somebody with some skills and abilities. So I looked for employment. I both went to school and also worked as consultant extensively, working for the USAID, for the IDB, for a number of regional organizations, putting into service my accumulated experience and little abilities. That also enabled me to earn money to feed my family, had to carry my family, my children were going to school. So that was keeping, but side by side, I took part in all efforts to denounce the, the government that was going in. From the moment they caught a shipload of hashish in Mauritania to all kinds of scandals that littered the 22, I would jump on every opportunity to help expose it, pile pressure on authorities, say in the UK, but also in Europe and in America. I travel quite often to America to interact with authorities, the UN, but also American government, to try to expose them. But as I said, their method of pressure was more diplomatic discussion, and of course, denying aid. But all that didn't have much of an impact on Jammeh, particularly since he didn't seem to care very much about the suffering inflicted as a result of withholding of this aid. And he also had cheap money from Taiwan, from Gaddafi, which were money put into his pocket, not into the treasury. So he was okay. As long as he can pay his soldiers who kept him in power, that's how he managed to survive for such a long time.
You saw the new dispensation as a chance, an opportunity for you to come back to the country. And why did you return?
Why did I return?
Yes.
Oh, well, I
Homesick?
I was there, yes, it's my home, but even more specifically, I need to come and see family, friends, associates who I had missed. This is home. So initially, that was my major, that was my agenda. I wanted to come and see. And that's what I did in March 2017, 2 or 3 months after the change. And visited. Since then, I have visited a few more times. And of course, being around physically is an opportunity to observe things and to hear. And from what I observed and what I learned, I became convinced that coming back home, I have an opinion to express, even a position to take on the running of the country. And once I found people who have ideas like me in terms of concern about the direction of things or the lack of direction of things, I was happy to team up with them. And that's what led to the creation of a party. It wasn't me who founded the party. It was a collective thing that we came forward to say we'll form a party for the purpose of pushing the ideas that we have about the future of the country in terms of its...
What does Gambia for All want? What do you want?
We want a change.
What do you want to change?
We want a change. We think that this country, in terms of the way it is run, has gone off the track for a very long time. It went off track from 1994, and a lot has been done to weaken the country as a nation state. First, in the area of the feeling of oneness and this determination to live together as a nation. Whatever a nation is, a collection of individuals who commit themselves implicitly to live together in peace. We think a lot of violence, harm has been done to that, the culture and the sense of it, over long years of Yahya Jammeh's governments, and he has inflicted very deep wounds, and that it is very important to address that by trying to restore a sense of oneness, not just by word of mouth, but by practicing policies that reassure the population generally that the state should be about the collectivity, not just a particular ethnic community or a particular generation or a particular gender. It's about all. Hence, even the choice of the name for our party also came in handy. But that's also one of the things that Gambia for all. But not only that, the whole range of running the affairs of the state for the well-being of the country, particularly in the domain of the economy, there is a whole lot that needs to be done to get things right, to get the priorities completely adjusted. If we forget about the propaganda that was churned out endlessly, eat what you produce what you eat, in reality, the sector of agriculture, fisheries, these are the key pillars of Gambian economy, have suffered tremendously for a long period of time of neglect, of incompetence and corruption and mismanagement of resources. We want to put an end to that. We want to take things back by giving priority to where it belongs. And also, in the area of agriculture and others, make a better and more rational utilization of the potential we have, as opposed to what obtained before. Potential in terms of natural resources like the fresh water in the river. We want to have a better use. These are some of our ideas in the relation to agriculture. I mean, economy, not to talk of the other sectors, services, tourism, but also technology. How best we can get the Gambia also to make a stake in the e-economy, as they call it, given our comparative advantages as a small but fairly well our geographical position, but also our English language tradition, and so many things. All these are ideas we have for bringing about a real transformation in the domain of economic governance. And of course, there's the political governance itself. The overt military dictatorship ended when Jammeh said he returned to constitutional, but we know we had no serious liberal democratic practice here. Now this new government has come in. They have inherited that. They've made a first step by asking for the whole constitution to be revised. Because that constitution that Jammeh put, not only he didn't himself respect it in spirit, but in itself was so truncated over the period that it really quite often went against democratic values. So this government did the right thing in asking for a fresh constitution. We are now in the process of going through with that. But in the meantime, there are certain things that are being done under their watch, which don't convince us that they are themselves feel strong and convinced about doing things right. Already the legislature, we see the same old party system, whereby instead of the legislature being left the space to act as the representatives of the people, it tends to act more in terms of its loyalty to political party or parties. We've seen it, including even members of parliament being thrown out because either they don't belong to one political party. That is really not, you are not really giving democracy a chance to grow. So a whole broad range of governance, we want to bring about change.
I was coming to more of that. I mean, you must have followed with keen interest the new dispensation. This is almost 3 years now that this new dispensation, this new government is on. What has been your take on, one, the coalition government that is still, well, shall I say, in place, though we have seen some fragmentation, and the call for the president to respect what was supposedly a tenure for him to stay in office. In other words, there was this 3-year Jotna movement that was going on the president to step down after 3 years. How do you see all of this, and what is your comment on them?
Well, the coalition government was was a centerpiece in a strategy for removing Jammeh. It became quite clear that unless, in the absence of a coalition of all the forces, or most of the forces, they stood very little chance under the kind of electoral arrangement that they stood very little chance. So I supported that idea because I knew that Jammeh and his dictatorship were bad for the country. So any strategy that removed them, I supported the idea as a strategy. Now, after they succeeded and came into office, they went further to commit themselves to a program of governance, what they call their coalition agenda, whatever it is. I have no objection to that. I have no objection to that, even though initially the objective was the objective of dislodging Jammeh was enough to convince me to support them. But if on top of that they also commit to an agenda which they will implement if they got to power, I think that was a good thing. I have no objection to that because after the coalition came to power, the commitment is to a transitional phase during which the ground will be made level and conditions will be facilitated whereby the country can have regular elections, good, clean, regular elections. So if there is a coalition agenda on which they are working, it gave me the hope that that equals or translated into stability. That would mean because all the forces are inside. Of course, once they took off, sadly, we saw that that coalition agenda itself, got a bit lost into a lot of controversy. So it's not very clear to me, in fact, what that agenda is. But the whole idea that there was an agenda initially is a good idea. But in reality, that agenda became shrouded in some kind of controversy. Secondly, the coalition, some of the members split, and not only they split, but on some of them, on one day they will say something for this, another day they flip-flop, which is very sad. So that the coalition as a project has only succeeded in dislodging, but it has really not been effective in carrying out the agenda that they themselves set themselves. That is what I will say, my views about the coalition as an idea.
Would it surprise you if the de facto president of the coalition, the present president of the Republic of the Gambia, should form a party and want to contest the elections come 2021? What will be your take on that?
Well, I think it's no longer, we are no longer within the realm of should he. I think he has already formed a party.
He has.
The party has been announced, I believe registered, and is operating in the field. But that is the party. The person of Barrow is a different matter. In terms of the political agreement which brought about a coalition front to dislodge Jammeh, I was told that a centerpiece is that whoever they selected as a candidate for the coalition would not only head a government for not more than 3 years, during which he will prepare the grounds for have a serene atmosphere of election, but he himself, you're taking that he himself will. So against that background, if you tell me that Mr. Barrow will be candidate, of course, the first thing I'll say, that will fly into the face of that political agreement. That is it. That's what I'll say. It will fly into the face of it. Of course, it's not a criminal offense. People who talk in terms of they don't know, it's not a criminal matter. But it's a political offense.
And integrity comes into play as well?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But more importantly, broadly, I put it in the broad realm of political offense. And the tribunal for sitting on political offenses are the people of the Gambia. So it will be for them to decide whether this is an offense they will consider not significant, you can overlook, or whether it's an offense for which he deserves to be sanctioned.
Let me come to your own party now. What is behind the creation of the Gambia for All party? What is behind you?
Yeah, but I told you. I told you that there is myself, or there are a number of other Gambians I spoke to who feel that,
Share the same.
yes, who feel that the change that the country needs and deserves is not on the horizons. The coalition government doesn't seem to be decisively leading things in the other direction. All the political forces that are not in the coalition government are also, by their pronouncements, don't appear to have solutions that will be to our satisfaction. So we believe that as citizens in a democracy, well, the thing to do is that if you feel strong about your ideas, you put them forward. That's the only thing behind the.
What have you got so far? What have you got in place since the party was formed?
Oh, it's only 2 years, 2 months, 2 or 3 months. The party was registered on the 2nd of January, and we launched it officially on the 8th of February, and since then that gives us only 2 months. We have recognized as a primary, as priority task to introduce the party to the country. And we embarked on that. It took off very well, but unfortunately we've now had to suspend it as part of scaled down activities caused by the emergency situation with this virus thing. But yes, the party has been registered, and it's been launched, and it is operating in the field on a low key right now. But, of course, very much determined as soon as conditions or circumstances change to go full speed to meet the people in the country.
On what can you leverage your strength as a force to be reckoned with?
No, I have no strength, but we have ideas. We have ideas. From our reading of the situation, this country is in very serious difficulties. And I must also say, within the limited tour we did before the program was suspended, we are getting from the people this sense of concern that the country is on the wrong trajectory, and that there needs to be a change reflecting the real needs, priority needs of the people. Priority needs being the people's livelihood, care, social care, and not so much on a lot of things that they see this government spending resources and time on. So that that is a very good signal for us as a new party coming. And I have no reason to believe that when we proceed with our tour, the rest of the country will not be feeling that. So if you talk about strength, that strength lies in the fact that we are perhaps saying something that touches the heart of people. That's really the only thing. Of course, there will be the appeal attached to either nostalgia or some sentimental past people may know, some of us. That is going to. But the main thrust is that we believe our concerns are the people's concerns. That is the message we are getting when we went around. And we did quite a lot of very heavily populated areas of the country. And we are also, is also the kind of message we get from the rest of the country where we haven't been. At least those of them who get in touch with us, including the reason why this interview is starting late is that we've got people coming to really tell us. So we believe that, yes, we are not on a line which is removed or irrelevant to the people's concerns.
What are you hearing?
Well, this is basically what I'm telling you. The people are concerned that the country is in a very bad situation, economically and socially, which we know. I'm sure you live in and around the Combo St. Mary area. A whole broad range of people's lives, whether it is the means of putting in, conveniently putting food on the table for everybody, whether it's in the terms of the urban environment. You see the, the poor services, the roads do not work, whether it's in the sense of employment. You know, these are all obvious. They are obvious things. We know it, and the people see no indication from the present government, just as under Yahya Jammeh, addressing those issues. On the contrary, actions speak louder than words. If you go not by what they say, but what they do, their priority appears to be elsewhere, appointing ambassadors, appointing deputy ambassadors, creating more ministries, buying more cars for ministers, appointing a fleet of advisors. You know, this seems to be the priority for them. The quarrel, even among the coalition partners, is not about what is being done for the farmers or is not being done for the farmers or the fishermen. It's about you taking this position from this person and give it to that person. So those are not the people's concerns. So we believe that the people's concerns are about how to improve conditions in Bundunkokunda, in Dipakunda, how living conditions can be made better for them. You see, Gambians have shown their resilience over these 20 years of surviving, outliving Yahya Jammeh. They not only their resilience, but their enterprise. You see the kind of individual developments, good buildings, but no roads, no reliable power supply, no even water supply. No even water supply, not to talk of school system which is collapsed. They are turning their children unemployed, forcing them to go by the back way all the time. Not to talk about their health facilities, where you are lucky if you get a prescription. The most you get is a prescription, if you do get to. These are the people's concerns. The farmers, where by their hard work and the sound advice and support they used to have from the government, they raise their production. If you take a key crop like groundnuts, the production was at the level of 120, 130,000 tons per annum. Now it's down to less than even 20,000 tons. What support do they have? Not in the area of fertilizer, seeds, not in the critical area of extension advice throughout. Not even in the area of marketing their produce. Even that 20,000 they get is not sold. When last did you have what in this country we call threat, which is a major economic activity, but also even a cultural event? When last did you have it here? And you say you are helping the farmers. You talk about eat what you grow, grow what you eat. But you are taking people's land and calling it your farm. And this government also is the same. You have fertilizer donated or acquired from, I don't know how, what source, left to rot in summer. Not given, the farmers are suffering. They have no fertilizer. The fertilizer imported in the country is left to rot. And what is more, they begin to steal it. The senior people in the ministry and everybody stealing it and trying to sell it into Senegal until they get caught by Senegalese authorities. That is not a serious way of helping to address the people's needs.
You do not have enough time.
Yes.
Barely 1 year,
Yes.
8 months,
Yes.
if all goes well.
Yes.
Is that a weakness for your party?
It is an obstacle. It's a handicap. It's an obstacle.
Yeah.
Yes, time certainly is against us. I will agree with you. That's a sound remark you made, and we are conscious of it. And things are made worse by the fact that this emergency is eating into that limited time. It's certainly not going to make life easy for us. But we still believe that we can overcome that obstacle and other obstacles, because there is the uncertainty right now about how long this corona thing will be an inhibition. But we're hoping for the best. That's what we do. We're hoping that it will be out of the way and that we will resume our activities. And there, I think the relatively small size of the country and the fact that the message we are carrying, we already have a feeling that it is one that people are listening. I think that will also enable us to prove effective despite the limited amount of time.
We have 14 political parties, and most likely there'll be more. Is that feasible for a country like the Gambia? And do we see it as a recipe for some alliances to be forged? And will it be an option for you?
3 questions.
Yes.
Whether as to feasibility is already is there, so it's feasible. We have
Small
14 parties,
Gambia.
is a lot, but it's feasible, it's democracy, and you never know, you may even have more. So feasibility is not an issue. Whether it's a recipe for alliance, I wouldn't call it a recipe. I wouldn't call it a recipe, but I do agree that it can create a situation where alliances of different forms can appeal to political parties maybe nearer a time. It can appeal to them. But of course, that also depends on a number of factors. They'll have to look at the circumstances. My own party I lead has an open door policy to working with all Gambians, whether organized into parties or even not organized into parties, but on the only condition that they subscribe to our fundamental values and principles as a party. Either they do subscribe to it or they subscribe to values and principles that are not incompatible. They may be different, but if they are not incompatible with us and if that party is prepared to work with us, we are welcome.
Let us go to, let me take you to the present circumstances. We are all engulfed with this COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm sure you are monitoring the way government is handling this situation. If you were president of the Republic of the Gambia, would you have acted differently?
Well, I will say yes to that because my first problem with the way the government is handling it is that there is insufficient transparency, which is putting it very mildly. Some will say opacity, but I will say the transparency around the handling of it is not clear to me. We hear occasional updates on the incidence of the disease. We hear 1 or 2 statements from the president, but mainly in the line of declaring a state of emergency and outlining certain restrictions which are calculated to facilitate the actual handling of the situation created by. But the substantive plan itself, I have really not been able to have my teeth into it. 2 days ago, I saw a copy of it on the online media. I didn't know whether it's published in the official, but I saw a plan, and they said this is the plan. I've had it printed, but I have not read it yet. But all the same, there is definitely insufficient or lack of transparency around it. So if you ask me if it was a Gambia for all that was in government, yes, we will handle matters differently because we will give it more transparency. We will work out a plan and hopefully work out a plan on the basis of consensus this time. Because this is a major, major national issue. It's one of those issues that most sensible governments would seek consensus of all the political forces, not just the government alone. If our party was in the government, we would want to have a consensus around the plan, and then that plan would also be well articulated so that people know what we are about. So that in that major area, I would do things very differently from them.
Let me ask you, why are people not complying to some of the rules and regulations that the president has said or stated?
Well, why do you presume that I should speak for the people? So, I don't know. I'm sure they must be finding those rules or strictures either too difficult to cope with in their lives, or maybe they find them unreasonable, but I don't know exactly. But I've also had reports, yes, that there has been non-compliance on a fairly extensive scale in some of the areas.
Okay, what is your message to your supporters as we wind down to the end of this interview? What is your message?
It will be repeating what we said on the 18th of March. I believe the declaration confirming the presence of the virus in the Gambia was on the 17th, if I remember. A day after, we issued a statement through a press release in which we said, yes, it's a very, very, very serious development for our country based on what we are hearing about this. It's a very complex, very, very serious. Two, combating it would take the collective efforts of the nation, not just the government. Three, that we as a party, as a force, stand ready to contribute our own quota in every way we can. And wanted the authorities to note that we are available. Four, we use our party machinery structures to tell our party officials, spread the message that this is a very serious matter. Don't be misled by any funny theories about conspiracies or religious. This is a very serious public health issue, and that the Gambia for all likes to stand to count among the forces in the Gambia that are fighting it as a public health issue, starting with targeting the critical area of awareness. We see that there is need for a real sustained campaign of raising awareness, and as a political party, we have the reach through our membership and our structures to contribute. So we said we are ready, and we gave directives to our structures up and down the country within what is available and what they can do to help spread that message and consider.
And the political message?
Oh yes, that's what I'm saying. First, appreciate, because this is a problem in our society, in societies like this, where a major issue like this has come and some other people want to present it as something else. It's an impediment to solve. So we address the public awareness as a campaign, and we should play a part in it. That's the first part. But as I said, we also said in the statement, that portion that goes to the government, to say we are also ready, in addition to public awareness, participation in public awareness. In addition, we are ready if you think we have anything we can contribute, appeal to us, and we still stand ready to do it. And of course, at the individual level and in other small gestures like helping public hygiene things, the party is doing it on a small scale. But we don't believe in making political capital. We don't want to invite you people. You are busy with your cameras to come and see us give a few bottles of, wash and water. It's okay. We're doing it. We're doing it because we do it out of conviction. We consider that it will be very much below the regard and esteem we have for ourselves if we want to use this for political gains. We're going about it in our own way. And
my final question.
Yes, your final question.
Will Gambia for all form the next government?
Well, you started by telling us your program is entitled Race to the
Road to State House.
Race or Road to Yeah, look, what I want to say is that the Gambia for all will not be against getting to State House, but State House is not our.
It's not the agenda. It's
not
no.
It's not the overarching agenda. Okay. The overarching agenda for the Gambia for all is to prove itself a force for the good in this country, a force for the good of democracy. We believe that genuine, functioning democracy needs strong, well-structured, disciplined political parties. And that part of our problem in this country, just as in many other African countries, that we don't have serious political parties, and the crowd, the atmosphere, and that leads us to where we are. I told you about even coalition partners who have subscribed to a particular program only today to jump on. This is not. So we want Gambia for all to be a different political party, a serious political party, which will become an institution to last, to sustain itself in such a way that one generation succeeds another generation, they continue. In bigger, more solid democracies that I have seen in the world, that's how things work. Political parties are very serious institutions. They should be about congregating ideas about the way for their country, and those ideas will constitute things for which they will work for as a party, as a force, to try to put into practice if they get into power. If that get into power happens in 2021, no problem, well and good. But if we don't get in 2000, we are not obsessed about it. So yes, race to State House, I wouldn't say count us out, but that's not really our overarching objective. We see the need to help solidify democracy as a way of life for this country. That's what we've come to believe. We have tried our hand at it at the time the country got independence from the colonial authority. We saw what it meant. We've also experienced a period when we lost it. We want to bring it back in a more reinforced way. And we believe in that context, political parties are key players. And that's what we want to prove. Key players, among other players who want to contribute to the same objective.
Honorable Bakari Bonja Dabo, thank you very much for granting me this interview.
My pleasure, and I thank you yourself and your crew for coming around to interview us, and use this occasion, if you allow me, to salute your distinguished listeners and audience, and give them warm regards from Gambia for all. Say to them that the country, like the rest of the world, is going through very trying times. But now is the time to have faith and to remain strong and united. I believe that the worst harm we can do to ourselves is if we panic. We mustn't panic under the circumstances, and we mustn't cede to fear. On the contrary, we should stand firm, and we hope the government, the authorities, will provide leadership which will enable us, our energies, all to be channeled towards one objective of fighting this thing. This is my message to the Gambian people.
That was the Honorable Bakari Bonja Dabo. He was talking to me on Road to State House. From me, Malik Jones. Bye-bye.